Hi and welcome back to Recapify. Today I'm going to explain romance and horror movie Tale of Tales released in the year 2015. There are three distinct stories in the movie. The king and queen of the kingdom known as Long Trellies are the main characters in the first story. At first, the couple seem to be enjoying their life. However, we later learn that the queen has an unusual medical problem, which prevents her from ever having children. The queen is constantly upset to see his wife in this condition as a result. The top medical professionals are called by the king from all throughout the realm. Sadly, none of them can figure out what the odd ailment inside her is. The king makes an effort to cheer up his queen despite this. One day he invites some circus performers to the palace. The queen abruptly becomes aware of one of the circus performers' pregnancy. As a result, she becomes envious and starts smashing things after entering her chamber. When the king finds out about this, he pays a visit to her room and vows to go to any extent to solve her problem. Late at night, a strange Nemr arrives at the castle, claiming that he can solve the queen's pregnancy problem. The king hears this and tells him that many have tried before and failed. However, the Necremainer is adamant that the queen can bear a baby, but it depends on how far the king is willing to go for his queen. The king replies to the most recent assertion. The Necremainer reveals that he has years of experience and knows a lot about nature. He also asserts that nature should always be in equilibrium, and that if the king desires a life, he must also sacrifice one. The monarch and queen give him their undivided attention despite his strange assertions. After this, the Nera begins describing the process. The king will have to capture a sea monster whose heart will be used to cure the queen's illness, then be prepared by a virginal, unmarried woman, and eaten by the queen. The Nera ensures the queen will get pregnant in this way. Hearing this, the king immediately agrees to hunt down the sea monster and begins the preparations. The following day, the king sets out on his. He finds the creature in one of the rivers when the monster is sleeping. The king walks into the ocean to attack it. In the end, he succeeds in killing the beast, but not before suffering serious injuries. Soon he succumbs to his injuries, but before he does, he removes the creature's heart. The queen then returns to the castle, covering the heart with a cloth. A castle maid is later discovered to be unmarried and pure. As a result, she's tasked with preparing them. She has weird sensations while she's cooking and unexpectedly gets pregnant. The queen quickly devours the heart before giving birth. In the next scene, the maid and the queen give birth to their children. At the same time, the boys look to be the same age. The name of the queen's son is Elias, while John is the name of the maid's son. The story then jumps ahead 16 years, at which point the kids have grown up. The queen is living a happy life with her son Elias, as she thinks that she's been given a second chance at life. However, the two toddlers, who appear to be twins and were born on the same day, are not average kids, as the sea monster is represented by the white tone of their hair. They have a strong friendship and are extremely close to each. On the other hand, the queen despises their friendship. She informs her son that as a prince, he's not permitted to be friends with the maid's son Jonah. In spite of this, Elias continues to meet with Jonah while ignoring his mother. Later, we also learn that the children have a special style of breathing underwater. In the next scene, the queen threatens her maid that if she doesn't prevent her son from meeting Elias, she and her kid will be expelled from the country. The two still meet frequently and appear unaffected. They cross the line. One day when Jonah wears Elias's clothing and goes to the queen, when she discovers the truth, she chooses to exile Jonah from the kingdom. Elias tries to stop him, but is unsuccessful. Jonah then uses a knife to slash a tree, and water begins to flow from that point. He tells Elias that as long as the water is clean, he should know that he's alive, and as soon as it becomes red, he ought to be aware that Jonah's life is in danger. After saying that, he walks away. Elias checks the water regularly to see if it has turned red. He notices something is awry one day when the water turns red. He leaves the kingdom without telling his mother in order to find Jonah. After a long search, Elias finally reaches Jonah's house. He learns that Jonah wed a young woman. Due to their similar facial features, the locals recognize him as Jonah. Then he learns that Jonah had gone to the forest 5 days ago and has not returned since. Elias then goes out in search of Jonah while the queen grows more concerned about him, left with no options. She goes back to the Nera answerer, but he continues to ask the same question, that if she wants her kid to return, she must make a life sacrifice. The queen immediately accepts this proposal elsewhere. Jonah is seen injured inside a cave. Then a winged thing attacks and tries to murder him. Elias finds Jonah and dispatches the monster with his sword after hearing him scream. However, Elias had no idea that the creature is indeed his mother, but that's what was agreed upon, life for life. Elias becomes the throne of the kingdom in the final scene of the first tale, and the narrative is over. Immediately after, we are shown the second story. The main characters of this story are the monarch and two senile women named Amma and Dora. The king is a very lusty man who is surrounded by women all the time. He drinks heavily all the time and is yet to locate his queen. But that being said, he has the power and wealth to wed whomever he chooses. Later, two aging sisters who live close to the palace are introduced to us. One of them is named Dora and the other is Amma. Dora is a cunning and self-centered woman. Amma is uncomplicated, but they don't often leave the house and aren't yet married. It's certain that they will die there alone. However, they have wonderfully nice and youthful voices. One morning the king hears Dora singing and instantly gets smitten by her voice. As a result, he decides to meet her. The king will soon be at their door to take a look at them. In his imagination, Dora is youthful and attractive. When he knocks on the door, the sisters start panicking as they believe the king will get angry if he finds out about their appearance. After thinking for a while, they finally devise a plan and Dora requests the king to come back after a week so that she will be more comfortable in the next scene. The sisters work incredibly hard to keep their fingers looking and being young. Herbs cover Dora's fingers, but they still have an old person appearance to them. But on the other hand, Emma had put her finger in her mouth for many days, and as a result, it's looking quite good and young. It is now the day of the king's visit after a week has gone. When the king gets there, Dora displays her mother's finger rather than her own. Now the king is not able to hold his emotions and believes that he has found the love of his life. However, the sisters become more worried because if the king finds out about their truth, he will most likely terminate them. After a lot of thinking, Dora proposes a condition. She will only spend the night with the king if there is total darkness, and the king agrees. In the next scene, Emma begins applying glue to Dora's body to make it feel more like a young girl. One of the temple guards arrives to pick Dora up around midnight. While there's darkness in the palace, the king sleeps with Dora. But in the morning he realizes that he spent the night with an old and ugly lady enraged. He gives his guards the order to fling Dora out the window. Thankfully, she makes it through the fall in the jungle. Dora witnesses magic as a witch arrives there and finds her. The witch transforms Dora into a stunning young woman with long hair using her powers. The next day, the king visits the jungle for hunting and falls in love with young Dora. At first sight, he decides to declare her the queen and takes her to his castle. Dora doesn't know how she turned into a young girl, but she remembers her sister Emma. Emma, who is still in shock at her transformation, is invited to her wedding. When Emma inquires about how she became young, Dora responds cynically, "I took off my old skin." However, Emma considers it to be true and visits an ironsmith to peel her old skin in exchange for a necklace. The ironsmith appears to be more stupid than Emma. He takes her into the forest, ties her to a tree, and strips off all of her skin. In the next scene, Emma is fragile when she returns to the castle, and she soon passes away elsewhere. The magic that turned Dora into a young girl doesn't last long. She starts to grow old as her skin begins to fold. When she realizes that she's turning old, she runs away from the castle. The story comes to a sad conclusion as Dora completely changes into her elder self. The third story, which also features a ruler, is next displayed to us. The king is of a weird nature, as his queen passed away long. He has a Violet, an unmarried daughter, but he has never fully loved her. The king discovers a parasitic bug sucking blood from his palm one day. Instead of swatting it away, the strange king just lets it feed on himself. Later, he keeps the parasite in a glass box and allows it to feed on his blood every day. As time passes, the insect becomes bigger. Violet, who has developed into a stunning young woman, on the other hand, constantly dreams of a prince. However, the irresponsible king could care less about her as he is always busy with his parasite pet. Unfortunately, one day the parasite becomes ill and dies. This devastates the king, so he peels its skin off and tells his daughter that the time has come to find a husband. He promises to set up a competition for her, and the winner will get married. On hearing this, Violet becomes happy, but also a little upset as she wanted to find a husband on her own. Despite this, she agrees to the king's decision. Soon, announcements about the competition are made throughout the kingdom. The king displays the parasite skin in his palace and announces that whoever can guess the name of the insect will win. Many people try, but no one can answer correctly because that insect has never grown that big and old. Just then, a weird-looking ogre appears in the palace. He also wants to participate in the competition, and the king hesitantly allows. The yogurt then smells the skin and guesses the correct answer. Upon hearing this, a devastated Violet runs away to the roof and attempts to terminate herself. However, the king calms her down by saying that he cannot break his promise, left with no other choice. Violet finally agrees in the next scene. The yogurt takes Violet far in the mountains where she cries for many days. One day when he goes out hunting, she sees another lady on a nearby mountain. She begs for help and explains the whole scenario to her. The lady also sympathizes with her and promises to come for help. The next day, the lady along with her family arrives there to rescue Violet while they're crossing over. The ogre arrives, but they successfully manage to cut the rope and he falls sometime later. The yogurt finds the family and eliminates them one by one. He then chases Violet into a cave and begins hugging. Violet also pretends to care, but the moment he's distracted, she finishes him off with a knife. In the next scene, Violet returns to the palace with the yogurt's severed head and places it next to everyone. She continues, "This is the spouse you selected," and breaks down in tears. The scene also breaks the king's heart, and he drops to his knees. In the final scene, the movie concludes here with Violet becoming the monarch of the realm. All of that came from the video. I'm hoping you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help this channel out.